you. So I just don't want to start without anyone joining us.
I see 3 people are there. They're already trickling in.
Okay, awesome. So let's start. Hello, everyone. Welcome to SWARMathon, a series about how AI is transforming the path to UN Sustainable Development Goals. My name is Mahnaz Hajesmaeili. I am here with my wonderful co-host Anne Cantera. Together, we're really thrilled to explore how cutting-edge technology, especially AI, is reshaping the path toward achieving the UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Let's start with a quick overview of the UN's SDGs. These range from eradicating poverty, zero hunger, clean water, clean energy, to building sustainable cities. You can learn more by following the link that I put in the comments if you would like to learn more about these 17 goals. And today, we're mostly focused on SDG 11, making cities inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable, and explore how it connects to other SDGs like gender equality, energy, and peace. The key question we'll be asking today is how can AI be a transformative force without compromising human rights and equity? And we are fortunate to have three incredible panelists here with us today to guide us through these topics. So let's dive in. So let's meet our panelists. First, we have Dr. Abhijeet Banode, an expert in sustainable urban development. Then we have Cemre Ulker, a passionate advocate of human rights and ethical AI. And finally, we have Dr. Mustafa, who focuses on using AI to close critical data gaps for SDG progress. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Mahnaz.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like to go ahead and give us more about your expertise, what you do, and anything you like to share?
Perfect. Good morning, all. My name is Abhijeet. First of all, I'm extremely happy and honored to join this wonderful panel and our wonderful host and moderators. So, a few things about me. I have nearly 2 decades of experience in telecommunication domain, specifically focusing on product management. In line with today's topic of discussion, I have experience particularly within the connected living verticals and various domain of it, like spanning from mobile devices, network to connected home, healthcare, vehicles, and of course, smart city. Beyond my professional role, I hold doctorate. My doctoral research was focused on United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 11, which is sustainable cities and communities, and its interdependencies with other 70% of SDGs as well as targets. So that's about me. Today, I will touch base on 2 topics. One is on AI with 5G as a catalyst for achieving the sustainability and resiliency. And also, I will briefly touch based on my proposed sustainable development goal implementation model based upon my doctoral research. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Cemre?
Sure. Greetings, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon from wherever you're joining us. I'm the representative of the Journalists and Writers Foundation to the United Nations Department of Global Communications. We're based in New York, a global civil society organization. And I'm a human rights advocate with a particular focus on monitoring civil and political rights violations. I also lead my organization's global programs on the timely, effective, and gender-sensitive implementation of the SDGs, but my expertise covers SDG 5, gender equality, 16, peaceful, just, strong institutions, and 17, global partnerships. And for about 2 years, I have also served as a lecturer at the UNITAR's Global Diplomacy Initiative, covering intersectionality between press freedom and some of the violations that women human rights defenders, journalists are encountering. And today I'm very much happy to join my colleagues, experts on data and urban development, but I'll bring a different perspective on the ramifications of growing technologies and AI on press freedom and some of the rising violations against human rights defenders.
Great. Thank you, Mustafa.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. It's a pleasure for me to join this event today. My name is Mustafa. I'm working as a fellow at the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies, which is an environmental think tank based in Japan. So actually, right now I'm in New York. I moved here very recently. Before that, I was working at this institute. We call it IGS in Japan for about 12 years. And my latest position was Deputy Director and Research Manager for the Integrated Sustainability Center of IGS. And for the last few years, I have been working quite extensively on Sustainable Development Goals, particularly the interlinkages among the SDGs. Together with my colleague, I co-developed a tool called SDG Interlinkages Analysis and Visualization Tool, which actually helps identify, quantify, and visualize the interconnections among the SDGs. That has been it's a tool for policy support. We have used the tool to provide like SDG planning or integration-related policy support to several countries, particularly in Asia, including Bangladesh, Indonesia, Japan, and a few others. Other than that, I have worked quite extensively on climate change, low carbon development, green economy, and recently I have also started working on like some other topics, particularly critical minerals and hydrogen. So today I'm quite excited about this topic. Actually, a few years ago, I worked under a project funded by Google's AI for Social Good program, together with Carnegie Mellon University, on the use of AI for a similar topic to advance the SDGs, where we tried to develop, we worked on developing an automated system to using NLP techniques to identify the causal relations among the SDG targets. There are 169 SDG targets. So that we have used, for example, for identifying the linkages among climate change and other SDGs. So I'm really excited to share some of my insights that I learned over the last few years. Thank you very much. And today I'll be basically talking about the data gaps and how AI can help this. I'll stop here. Thank you. Over to you, Mahnaz.
Fascinating. Thank you, everyone. So let's start with Dr. Abhijeet. What are some of the major sustainability challenges in urban development that AI is helping to address? And how do these solutions impact communities both locally and globally?
Awesome. So, so I'd like to focus it a little bit towards combination of AI and 5G to align it with the latest development happening in the telecommunication domain specifically, and supporting it to the overall urban development, not just only related to the sustainability aspects of it. So AI and 5G, I feel like it is just not that those are not just technologies; those are enablers of transformative solutions that were unimaginable years before. I started my career with 1G, and frankly speaking, when we sent SMS, that itself was a big achievement for me that time. And now the world is reached to the level where we can not only just connect the people via phone, but also we can connect the things with the introduction of IoT. Now, digging further into the connected living, AI along with 5G can offer lots of benefit, starting from, for example, healthcare or maybe or transportation. Obviously, we have connected home and smart cities. And I'd like to start it with, for example, with healthcare, because this is something where lots of advancement happening at this moment. So here in this specific area, I would like to give a few examples so that you can actually relate it to the conditions around you, the use cases around you, and the development you're observing around you. So so first of all, the combination of, for example, robotics, AI's predictive capability, and 5G's ultra low latency is already breaking the physical barriers in the medical care at this time. There are lots of good use cases and achievements, but I would like to state specifically in 2020, Shanghai Chest Hospital, they successfully performed a groundbreaking 5G enabled remote surgery. I'll tell you why it's called as a 5G enabled remote surgery. So Professor Lu Qingquan, he operated a lung cancer patient who is located in Kashgar, Xinjiang province in China, and he was in actually Shanghai, which is actually around 3,000 kilometers away. And you know the why he was able to achieve that, it's the precision of that overall the operation was offered by the 5G's low latency network. So with 5G, practically we are observing up to 10 milliseconds of latency, means that's the response time we have from end to end. And apart from that, the real-time control as well as the real-time imaging system provided by AI has made it possible throughout this procedure of treating that cancer patient. So that's one of the well-known use case. But we see around us, for example, Teledoc Health, which I use actually on a day-to-day basis before going to hospitals. They are also leveraging AI and 5G, for example, to transform the telemedicine, and they are delivering the high quality care beyond the barriers of physical distance. And they are not only just actually using the connectivity to give you the care what you need, or to connect you with the doctor or the professional what you are actually seeking at this moment, but they are also using the predictive capabilities of AI to help you understand what problem you can face and what medication you need to make your health better ahead of the tragedy can happen in anyone's life. Now let's imagine this innovation is going globally, and what it is doing, it's actually bridging the gap of inequalities. It ensuring that the advanced care is reaching to the remotest possible area, which was not possible before, right? And if we take it further down, with the United Nations, because since we would like to, as a part of this discussion, we want to make sure that what we are discussing is aligned with the United Nations goal. So this directly contributes to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 3, which is good health and well-being, which this AI along with 5G is offering. There are other use cases which have been actually going at a very good scale, and as well as there are lots of pilots running all over the world, which is actually mobile health unit, which you might have seen maybe. And when these mobile health units are equipped with 5G connectivity, they are actually offering the advanced diagnostic to the patients at the remotest area. And depending upon how the mobile health unit has been set up, they are also offering some level of surgical facilities, which were not possible before because of the distance and because of all this physical barrier which we always face, right?
Yeah.
And additionally, I also align it with a Sustainable Development Goal 12, which is actually a responsible consumption and production. While we are making sure that we are creating this advancement, but by not actually going physically there, we are also reducing the carbon footprint. So this is also making the solution is environmentally responsible. So that's one area which I'm always fascinated about exploring further. But specific to telecom, another area which has been implemented in a good scale and is going through a lot of advancement these days, that's actually an autonomous vehicle. And car to everything connectivity. You might have heard about vehicle to vehicle, but vehicle to everything. That connectivity with the cellular is called as C2X. That's transforming the urban mobility drastically. We have been observing how Tesla, for example, or Waymo, how they are using the onboard AI, but that's actually limited to, for example, that specific vehicle or the driver sitting inside. But when 5G comes in picture with, as I said, car to everything connectivity, it's helping that car to be a part of the larger ecosystem. What does it mean? It's not only actually handling the physical parameter inside the car, but as well as it is connecting to the external world. It's connecting to your signaling system. It's connecting to the other transportation aspects of it. It is also connecting to the other vehicles, and as well as real-time helping pedestrians. right? They can also connect to the pedestrian. And this is actually resulting in the reduction in accidents on road. I'd like to give one very good example. So this is actually from the Jacksonville, Florida, where autonomous shuttle program at this moment, it's in progress. And it's actually powered by private 5G network from T-Mobile. So, and what exactly we are observing here from the benefits perspective, so this is providing last mile connectivity or last mile reach to those vehicles which were not possible before. They integrated it with the city's transit network, and they made sure that every person get access to this system, to the transportation, efficient transportation, to be very specific. And then another use case, which uh, I went to Las Vegas last time, 2 months before actually, and I saw a few of those experimentation. For example, Cisco and Nokia. So they have implemented AI-driven traffic management system, and yes, Las Vegas does need it. They're extremely congested. I see the improvement. It's almost every year I'm going because of some other conferences or maybe sometime just for leisure. So what they did actually, they connected this transportation grid, or I can say the whole ecosystem, using the 5G, private 5G network and the 5G sensors. And they made sure that all this traffic management system is dynamically adjusting. Overall, what it is delivering is lower emission, first of all, less congestion, and also the commute time, right? Once we offer all of these things, we can also attract the people to go for the public transportation, which then further can add value. So now, aligning it with our topic, which is United Nations Sustainable Goal, I align it with two sustainable goals at the high level. For example, Sustainable Development Goal 11, which is sustainable cities and communities, and then most importantly, climate action, which is Sustainable Development Goal 13. So, go ahead.
I also heard that they use this traffic, they used AI for the traffic congestion problem in one city in China, and they could decrease it by 50%. Like, that's an impressive outcome.
Exactly.
And so, Jamreb, what do you think are the humanity aspects of it, like that can cause these systems, like have effect on marginalized groups in cities?
Well, Mahnaz, I would like to take a step, if possible, and project you an overall view on where we are standing today, because just like you noted in the very beginning, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, these are goals composed of very comprehensive agenda, including human rights targets varying from climate change, urban development, as my colleague reflected on, education, gender equality, eliminating injustices, clean water, among the many, many others. And these were adopted back in 2015 with an ambitious target deadline of 2030. But taking the step back, I believe we must all admit that these are likely to remain as a promise in peril because of the unprecedented rise of conflicts. This year marked the historic high in terms of civilian casualties, which rose by a terrific number of 72%. And this is only compared to last year. This is the highest hike since the adoption of SDGs back in 2015. And we have about 5 years remaining till the SDGs deadline. But the recently launched report of the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, the 2024 SDGs progress report, it shows us that only about 17% of the global goals are met, 17. And in addition to this alarming fact, another 17% have even regressed, which means that they're further away from their point of origin. And the remaining of the progress line shows only a moderate implementation. So in this portrait, in order to renew global society's trust in the intergovernmental systems, government leaders, member states set out a more realistic vision of multilateralism that can actually deliver its promises, and created a roadmap where it's more representative of our the world that we're living in today. And these goals must be adapted to the changing nature of peace and conflicts, considering how to advance sustainability, not to limit it within the SDGs context, but how do we get them beyond 2030? So the Pact for the Future, I would like everybody to check out after the event. The UN has established a particular website on the Summit of the Future. This pact was prepared since the last couple of years, including diverse stakeholders in the discussions from private sector, academia, tech leaders, civil society, and it was adopted with a majority of consensus of the member states, which is rare at the United Nations. But this happened recently at the Summit of the Future that took place on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly 79 session. And it includes 5 pillars, and we have one dedicated to science, technology, innovation, and digital cooperation, in addition to another particular annex on global digital compact. So this is a renewed global commitment, a really multinational and generational opportunity for another chance to establish peace. And coming back to digital and emerging technologies, including AI, they surely play a significant role as enablers of sustainable development, as Dr. Abhijeet also underlined, and it offers a huge potential to close some of the inequalities. But on the other side of the coin, which I will reflect more on the upcoming sections, but I must say that intergovernmental entities like the UN are leaning more towards to the side of questioning how to protect fundamental rights that may be, in fact, shadowed by the ramifications of advanced technologies and artificial intelligence. And we must be very responsible on managing the potential risks posed by technology, the ways in which it can perpetuate and deepen some of the gender gaps, some of the violations against human rights defenders, which soon I will elaborate more, patterns of discrimination, and so forth. So the last point that I will underline in this section is that the pact also includes very advanced steps avoiding weaponization of emerging domains and technologies through continued assessment of these risks around military applications of AI and latest tech. So lastly, enhancing an international governance of artificial intelligence for the benefit of humanity, I would say, is extremely critical, and I'll be happy to provide you more insights on this in the next section.
Sure. We are in the next section. So could you please give us some examples of how it can affect humanity and how these AI solutions can affect um, humanity?
Sure. Sure.
Sure.
Given my expertise, I would like to say that we live in an era where about 40% of global populations are living under authoritarian regimes. It's very important that we acknowledge this fact. Another 15% are living in hybrid regimes. And in parallel lines, democratic governance has declined for the consecutive 20th year. So we have to make sure that we all understand as tech leaders, civil society leaders, the conjecture that we're living in, because without democracy, without peace and security, regardless of how advanced technologies that we're embracing, prospering these for the sake of humanity will not really be possible, because on top of increasing armed conflicts, gender apartheid regimes, autocrats are really elevating a climate of intimidation. And for one-man regimes, for dictators, social media and internet are big playgrounds. And in terms of internet freedom, which latest technologies and AI play a significant portion in terms of developments, it also declined for the 14th consecutive year. We are speaking of technologies, but let's also acknowledge the fact that about 48% of the global communities are living where authorities, state authorities, are disconnecting the society from internet for political reasons. So diverting info sets to manipulate social discourse, digital harassment committed by bot accounts usually financed by state authorities on Twitter, Instagram, deep fake videos disseminating misinformation, disinformation are some of the very, very common tactics that oppressive regimes embrace. And as you all know, 2024 was the year of elections, and more than half of the globe went to polls. So in our human rights reporting, we have documented that videos created by generative AI spreading false information about dissidents, political players, boosting a hostile environment within societies, particularly on the culturally, politically sensitive issues like migration policies were very much frequently reported this year during the election campaigns of many of the countries that we have observed. Coming to journalists, for example, exiled journalists and human rights defenders, for us, connectivity is very essential. And forced displaced advocates are doing their best to stay connected with their audiences back at home, using a range of digital tools and apps like VPNs, censorship detection softwares for news outlets. These are very much embraced by journalists and human rights defenders to mitigate some of the online restrictions. But exiled journalists also indicate that they have a limited audience reach on popular social media platforms because of the politically controlled algorithms at different digital media platforms. And particularly in countries where freedom of expression is under imminent threat, we must be very cautious on how technology and AI is embraced by autocratic regimes. Coming to women's empowerment and gender equality, I would love to share a couple more statistics here. We must be cautious, and I'm pretty sure my colleagues will reflect more on this later on, but gender digital divide creates a huge gap. And this is, as we observe as human rights defenders, this is very much reflected in gender bias in AI applications too. So a recently survey, for example, from a global perspective indicates that women journalists from about 125 countries, the results show that about 73% had suffered online violence in their work through fabricated information that is produced on internet by AI. And Yen Women's data sets also present a very prideful reality. For example, the most common forms of violence reported were misinformation on digital platforms. About 66% of the respondents indicated they have been the survivors of cyber harassment. They have been hacked. Video and image-based abuse posed by AI apps rank about 75%, harassments, unwanted images, sexually explicit content. So these are some of the highlighting issues that we must be cautious about diverting a sensitive legal measurements as well. And very lastly, I want to give you one more fact and leave you there. With the surge of latest technologies and widespread use of social media, really stifling press freedom where oppressive regimes are controlling public institutions, 62% of women parliamentarians felt that violence was at some point employed to deter them from participating in elections or any political spheres using true smear campaigns or artificial videos. So in this conjecture, we're having real difficulty on the intersectional areas of gender equality, peaceful just institutions, democracy, and global collaborations. So as much as I love facilitating technology into our work, I think we must be all cautious about the ramifications as well.
Yeah, exactly. So how do you think we can make this we can ensure these systems don't exclude people and doesn't cause these problems that you mentioned? These are very important things, and like these are very big issues that they can cause. And how do you think we can remove
Well, as a human rights advocate, constantly working on policy briefings that we bring it to the attention of the UN agencies. We really expect IT communities, tech communities, private sector entities to commit themselves to respecting the rights of people who use their services, their products, and the executives must address any adverse impact that these venues may have on human rights. And they should support accessibility of anti-censorship technologies, making them more affordable. And at the end of the day, they must really show resistance to government orders to shut down internet connectivity or ban digital services. We have been documenting this increasingly taking place on frequent time lapse when there is a political uprising in a country, or when there is a natural disaster that governments are failing to respond imminently. We observe that there are subsequent cuts in internet freedom, and this really disables citizens' very fundamental basic right to access independent information. So I would be very much glad to see more and more executives at tech spaces engaging in continuous dialogue with civil society members, because we present understandable effects of their policies to their attention. So it's very, very critical that IT companies seek local expertise, especially in repressive settings where there are political contexts, cultural contexts, making it harder for citizens to practice their fundamental right to express their opinion, to access independent, free information sets. So I believe consultations with civil society groups will be extremely helpful in shaping tech companies' decisions to how to operate in many of the autocratic regimes.
I'm wondering what you think about the incoming administration in the US and how that will impact your work.
Mm-hmm. Well, even though we're lucky that in this country we still have institutions independently running. We have a judiciary that is very much less under the control of political authorities, figures, when it's compared to many of the other countries, particularly on Global South. But speaking with colleagues since the last election at the UN, we are all very much alarmed on what's probably coming, because we are aware of this elected government's tendencies towards being very conservative on some of the sensitive issues in terms of women's rights, our rights to access health services, and so forth. So projecting some of the upcoming limiting space of journalists, civil society members, we are getting ready for the second round of post-elections phase, where I'm pretty sure, I mean, we must respect the decision and the result of the election, surely, but this doesn't really prevent us from preparing on the side of legislations as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mustafa, building on these points, could you give us an example of an AI-driven solution that has directly contributed to a city's sustainability while addressing broader challenges like energy optimization or education access or human rights or anything that can be involved in this?
Okay, thank you very much. So let me start with the big picture, try to identify some of what the SDGs are, what are some of the major challenges, and then I'll try to give you examples or some options on how artificial intelligence can help address some of these challenges to advance the SDGs. Okay. The SDGs, as you know, is a global commitment of 17 goals to tackle issues like poverty, inequality, education, climate change, and so forth. But I think Cemre already mentioned that the progress has been painfully slow. Less than 20% of the SDG targets are on track, they're progressing, and about a third are actually stagnating or going back, deteriorating. We faced quite severe setbacks in implementing the SDGs. First, we had a lot of hype about its success, but one of the major setbacks was COVID-19, which disrupted the economies and the lives. Then conflicts. Again, you mentioned this one. Conflicts are escalating, and the impacts of climate change are also growing. But on top of that, I think another big hurdle is data. Okay, we often don't have the information we need to make good decisions. In some areas, particularly in low-income or remote regions, data is either outdated or incomplete, or just the data does not exist. And even when we have the data, it's often so scattered across different systems that we cannot connect the dots. We cannot make use of it. And that creates a problem, because if we can't track progress, we can't fix what is broken. And I think that AI can have can provide some sort of solution to some of these problems. Where does it fit? It's not only for science fiction movies, not only for tech experts. It's actually a practical tool that can help us advance some of the, help us solve some of the problems we are facing with, particularly with the data. Let me try to look into this, give you some examples across 4 different steps. Okay, first one is about data. This artificial intelligence can actually help us get high quality data that we need so much. For example, AI is analyzing satellite images to track deforestation, monitor crop production, or even map urban growth. So that is somehow related to your question. Say Microsoft and is working together with another company called Tomorrow.io to provide real-time weather forecasts for farmers, particularly in African region, and this helps them make better decisions to grow more food and adapt to climate change. All of them are related to some of the SDGs. Okay, and as for the conflicts, in the conflict zones, traditional data is not really available. It's not possible to collect the data over there. And in this case, AI can help us by analyzing satellite images and social media posts to map how people are moving. So these are some of the examples here. And we also need to think about the real-time monitoring, which can through which we can pull data from IoT devices, social media, and other sources that can give us up-to-date insights and act quickly. So these are kind of giving us what I put it like eyes and ears we need in order to see the full picture. Next, about interconnections, SDG interconnections, which has been one of my works for the last few years. As you know, that the SDGs are expected to be implemented in an integrated manner. They are all interconnected, and it means that if you take action in one area, it can have effects on the other. But policymakers are traditionally used to work in silos. They don't know how to understand these complex relations, and artificial intelligence can help us untangle these complexities. For example, if we talk about energy, if we try to improve the access of energy, we make progress in access to energy, it can also reduce poverty. There are ample examples of this in many countries, and it can also help address climate change, right? So, and AI solutions, AI can help us through modeling exercise. It can help us identify these relationships. As I mentioned earlier, I worked with Carnegie Mellon University under a Google-funded project to identify these causal relations among the SDG targets, because there are 169 targets, and they have kind of a binary relations among each other. With sometimes it is one directional, sometimes bidirectional, and it is impossible for us to grasp all of them just by ourselves. So AI can actually help us find these causal relations. And as for the cities, I can give one example from Sweden. It's the city of Malmö. They're using artificial intelligence to optimize their urban planning, particularly for managing energy, transportation, and green spaces. And this approach balances the goals like sustainable cities and also climate action. I also want to talk a little bit about monitoring the progress, tracking the progress, or to see how we are doing and to evaluate the impact. Because with that monitoring, we are basically like flying blind. We don't know where we're heading. Example from New Delhi in India, where artificial intelligence is being used to monitor air quality in real time, and this not only helps health but also climate change. And there are also AI-powered dashboards like those built with Power BI or Tableau that can make data accessible and transparent, so everyone, governments, organizations, and even citizens can see what is happening, and then that can raise accountability of the stakeholders, right? And also, I think it's very important that this kind of use of AI can help us understand the ripple effects, the interconnected effects of the projects, showing how one intervention can help multiple create synergistic effects on multiple SDGs, and very often it also creates trade-offs. So that is also positive and negative impacts we can help, we can identify using. And fourth one I would like to talk about is governance. One example is UNICEF's U-Report chatbot, which collects feedback from young people, particularly in the developing countries, to ensure their voices are heard in policymaking. Using modern technology like artificial intelligence can also make governance more adaptive. Policies can be evolved based on real-time feedback and changing conditions. So I think this gives a kind of an overall picture, but there are also specific examples of how artificial intelligence can help specific SDGs. For example, in education, AI-powered adaptive learning platforms that can personalize experience for students can help students, particularly those lagging behind, to learn more effectively. And for clean energy, I can give example of Google's use of DeepMind, which uses artificial intelligence to optimize energy in data centers, reducing cost and emissions. So basically, when we talk about AI, it's not science fiction movies. These are not just theories. These are real solutions, and they're happening right now. At the moment, they're happening. So I know that there are many other things, ethical issues and other things. For example, it has risks related to like reinforcing biases, operating without transparency, or even exclude marginalized communities. So when we use AI, we also need to think about these things. We need to prioritize fairness, ensure diversity in data and design, and make sure AI is transparent and accountable. If we do this way, AI can strengthen, not undermine the principles of the SDGs. So yeah, I think I'll stop here to see if you have any questions. Thank you.
These are very great points about how AI can be beneficial and help the SDGs. And I feel like there are like very close connection between all these SDGs and how they can help each other to grow faster and boost their effectiveness. Uh, so, Dr. Abhijeet, would you like to add something about how what are the steps that we can take to do this
Yeah.
connectivity?
Yeah. So while I also want to continue with whatever Dr. Mustafa stated regarding interdependencies of SDGs, but before that, I would like to add on connectivity. I'd like to state here that in terms of specifically on connectivity, so global connectivity and specifically governmental bodies, they have taken drastic steps, and even though there is a huge support needed from the overall industry or the academia as well as the whole organized governmental organization and the global standardization forum. But specifically in USA at this moment, there is something called as citizen broadband radio services, and in Europe it is called as license shared access. So this has actually created an opportunity for bridging a digital divide by enabling affordable, high quality broadband access, specifically to the undeserved areas. So, though this and this makes sure that the connectivity is available to everyone. There is no inequality in terms of connectivity, like in line with the SDG 10, which is reduce inequalities. Um, United States has taken it further, and what they did actually, they are also using the same frequency what they have actually dedicated for serving everyone with minimum cost. They are also using it during the disaster management situation by making sure that the connectivity is available to our first responders so that they can help and they can reach out to people and make sure that they're taking those people out from the trouble. Other topic from the last panelist raised on the data privacy, security, and ethical aspect of it, right? So so the research community at this moment is aggressively working towards federated machine learning. I'm also working on 3 research papers on this specific topic. So this is to ensure that the data remains with the right owners and only the result. I don't want to go too much into the technicality, but only the result or the sanitized data goes to the centralized system. This makes sure that like whoever has reported some XYZ, which may not be in favor of government or maybe a specific power. So this makes sure that the sources are untraceable, and it actually also avoids the retaliation. While I also agree that a lot of effort is needed, but most importantly, what is needed is standardization. What is needed is the global community coming together and adapting to the best practices towards the overall global humanity and global community, giving them equal access to connectivity, giving them rights to protect their data. So,
Yeah, sure. Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Dr. Abhijeet.
Can I add one small addition to what Dr. Abhijeet said? I think you mentioned about SDG 10 about inequalities. I can bring some examples from developing countries, particularly mobile telephony, smart phones. These are actually helping like marginalized communities to connect with the market, which is addressing inequalities, and also like mobile banking, which was like maybe 15 years ago, it's completely unimaginable. But now people, even the rural areas in developing countries, they're using it. So that's fantastic. I think it has really helped a lot.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So,
I have a question that might seem a little simplistic, but you provide connectivity, but if for in underserved communities, how do they get a device? What are they connecting with?
So from that particular aspect, specifically from the government perspective, and as well as actually, I'm only giving example from the United States because I'm working with mobile operators here. So they made sure that they have plan for plan and as well as the devices where they can actually offer the fully subsidized mobile devices to customer. They can offer partially subsidized or very low cost mobile subscription plan so that they can use the connectivity not only actually as a basic tool of connectivity but also during the remote education, for example, what students needs. There are a lot of good examples. For example, I work for Boost Mobile, and I know about actually how is our effort in terms of helping the underserved community, as well as in past I worked with Comcast, Xfinity Mobile, and they are also actually taking a lot of effort making sure that it's not just a connectivity in terms of mobile phone, but as well as broadband, enabling them for the education remotely, as well as assisting them in many other ways, actually. So the community is pretty much focusing on alert on making sure that every last person in the community, last mile in the geography is getting served. So that effort, but again, in line with other panelists, this need to actually extend to the very last person in the global community and not just limited to the developed countries or developing country. It should actually serve to the everyone, whether it's developed or whether it's underdeveloped or not developed countries.
yeah, exactly. Cemre, you wanted to add a brief follow-up about this? Would you
Sure,
like
sure.
to?
Thank you. My follow-up comment will be on the existence of data, as Dr. Mustafa also underlined. At United Nations, there's a system, Volunteer National Review. And as he was speaking, I was just Googling and checking the latest we have. So at every high-level political forum that happens annually during summertime at UN, some of the countries are voluntarily presenting their reports. And this past year at the high-level political forum, we have had only the reports, data set reports of 36 member states out of 193. This number is very, very, very low. And the reports indicate that out of these 36, only 16 member states presented disaggregated data based on gender. So our availability to reach data sets are even shrinking when we speak on distinct SDGs like intersectionality of gender with the rest of the Sustainable Development Goals. And this is again going back to the political will of member states to share some of the data sets that we as human rights reporters, journalists, or academics cannot really have an access without the cooperation of member states, which includes conditions in prisons, for example. As the number of political prisoners and journalists behind the bars are increasing, we must have constructive dialogues with the member states to enable international observatories, ombudsmen to have an access to these closed premises where we foresee some systemic human rights violations. This includes utilization of public resources. This includes enabling us to have more access to data to report on transnational crimes, for example. We see that more and more as autocratic regimes are taking more and more place across the globe, the camp of dictators are also embracing more oppressive measures to go after dissidents, even living in exile. And in terms of data to report this, we need the collaboration of other democratic states, for example, in this context, so that we're able to bring more to the attention of United Nations and therefore can have an impact on legislation. So these are all very much interrelated on one another. Civil society members cannot do the whole work alone. The member states cannot exist to uplift human rights without tech leaders, civil society leaders. So despite the negativities and the minus trends going on, we must do our best to boost constructive dialogues within these different stakeholders.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I come here with a quick response? Yeah.
Oh, we would
Thank
like
you very.
to have, sorry,
Sorry. Yeah.
we would like to have see if there is any questions from the audience. So feel free to add your questions in the comments, and we can ask our panelists here. And so we can do it after your point, Dr. Mustafa. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So I was just responding to Cemre. I'm not surprised that the voluntary national reviews do not have sufficient reporting on the statistical data, particularly disaggregated one. A couple of years ago, I was involved in a project where we reviewed 50 plus VNRs, voluntary national reviews from Asia Pacific, basically all the Asia Pacific countries. And my finding was, I was in charge of the statistical part, and my finding was similar. Again, I'm not surprised because these reviews are produced by governments and they will try to use their political priorities, right? They will try to report on mostly the positive sides, and often they ignore the statistical part, maybe because of the lack of data or sometimes by other reasons. That's why I think it's important to use artificial intelligence or other techniques to find alternative data. There are many organizations working on data. Sometimes it is like in research reports, sometimes it is in social media. So using modern technology, we can probably extract this information to fill up the data gaps. That's what this I believe is important. Yeah. Thank you.
I want to add one last sentence to Dr. Mustafa's statement. So when I did my research, I reviewed this, whatever data was available from 193 countries. I was working closely with Sustainable Development Solution Networks. In 2021, I was also part of the team who helped them develop the structure, as well as I was one of the external reviewer of the SDSN report released in 2021. So one that set of data, and after that, actually, that was more on my quantitative. I will talk about it later. But as well as I reviewed data from the 25 countries, top performing from various geographies with all different constraints, I did find the gaps. So those were not aligning. 25 countries, maybe just consider like 3 cities, maybe I have taken as an example, 75 cities globally, and the data from these 193 countries, I did find the gap. So I especially agree to that statement that sometimes those are biased because government want to communicate it differently as compared to what is happening on a ground level. So again, global governance is
Yeah.
the key.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. And would you like to add something? Do you have any
Um,
questions?
I feel like a lot of my questions are very simplistic, but I think also our audience might have some simple questions. And one of them was, I think when people hear AI in general right now, they think Gen AI, they think ChatGPT, and you all keep referencing AI. I think it would be nice for you to kind of explain what types of AI you're speaking about, just as a clarifier for the audience.
Yeah, I love that question. Thanks, Anne.
So you want me to take that question? Maybe I can.
Maybe you were the most tech savvy person here to answer that question.
Okay. So maybe I can add few things on that. Just a little bit of background, and then I will actually jump on the topic. So before starting my doctorate in early 2020, almost like 4 years, I focused on SDG 9, starting from 2016 approximately. And then I actually soon realized that, one part is missing in my research, and what I want to contribute and deliver to the community is the humanness in it, the feelings in it. And then actually I change my track and move towards the sustainable development goal 11, where we talk about the people, the communities, the sustainability aspect of it, right? So so solutions what we design, as whether it's the cities or whether it's a technical experts or the industries, we need to actually have that human aspect in it, that also applicable to AI. Few really very good example I want to give. One is Singapore's virtual Singapore project. I'm sure Dr. Mustafa, you must be aware about it. So Singapore took it in a very different way. So what they did actually, they created a digital twin of the whole country. That's one aspect. And then there is Australia and New Zealand. They are collectively working on an exactly similar aspect for their to address the sustainable development goal. And so their whole strategies are totally based upon digital twin. And fortunately, I'm also one of the smart city expert for Australia and New Zealand Smart City Council. So, so with this, what they are doing, they are bringing the AI, machine learning. We are, like, a few of you may be aware about it, like mixed reality aspect of it, and then trying to solve the problem. Whether it's a Gen I, whether it's a machine learning, it should actually address a humanity, the questions happening at the humanity. When with the machine learning, with the digital twin, they are actually simulating the situations, what can happen in future. It's touching to the human aspect of it. It's touching to the natural disasters or earthquake of it. So they are using digital twin, and I really find it fascinating. And also Gemini model from the UK, that is one of the base model which most of the countries use actually when they try to bring something similar to um, uh, Gen I, not Gen I typically. I can say the artificial intelligence and machine learning. Um, so irrespective of whatever model we use, make sure that it is addressing the ground level problem. We don't want the concrete world with sensors everywhere. That is smart city, but that's not people want. People want the cities where people can live their feelings, their tradition, their language, and the culture they had. They don't want to change that DNA of it. So whatever model you select, you can use Gen I. You can use, for example, you can go back to the machine learning. There are so many models can be used, but make sure that everything is actually can be used in a positive or a destructive way. Make sure that you are actually working towards the humanity. Doesn't matter what model you use. Every model can be used for the humanity.
I have one more question for Gemra. Before we wrap up, what can people do to get involved and make impact in these humanitarian efforts and gender equality efforts?
Well, I think media literacy is very important, and because with this uprising trend of information being diverted, being sensitized, we living in democratic nations have a very, very heavy responsibility to remain in solidarity with the rest of the global communities living under oppressive states. This means that if we have a freedom, to raise our voice, we must take a step and, for example, tweet about something that is dear to our heart. This can be about environmental issues. It doesn't have to be political, I'm gonna say, but at the end of the day, for me, all the human rights are political. It's not possible to divide human rights violations from the ongoing trends in political spheres. So we must be cautious of what sort of information we are consuming on social media platforms. We must be reading the articles before we retweet them, before we like them, or we must be very cautious about which information we're spreading. Is it a trustworthy platform? Who wrote that article? Is that a journalist or a citizen journalist taking the liberty to comment on these issues, which is perfectly fine. But let's take a moment to see if we are a part of this systemic disinformation trend, or if we are being cautious global citizens, knowing the realities of different localities, and let's question if we are doing our part to reading more about systemic human rights violations taking place in Iran, in Afghanistan, wars in Ukraine, Gaza, sexual crimes taking place in Israel, Sudan. I mean, you name it. We're living in the era of conflicts. But us living in relatively democratic states, I think we have an immense responsibility to be cautious of what we are spreading, what form of information we must. I would really love if we take more incentive towards echoing the voice of, for example, human rights defenders living in exile, journalists living in exile, rather than fabricated news outlet. So let's keep an eye open, on what form of information that we are engaging on social media or digital mainstream outlets.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's something everybody can do.
Yeah.
Very simply. Very
Yeah.
simply.
These are very important points. Yeah. So, well, I think we have 2 minutes after our time. So, thank you everyone for adding this valuable insights, and it was a great talk. I really enjoyed listening to you. And let's just for the last thing, let's remember that technology isn't like a standalone solution, and we need to create tools that create thoughtfully, having in mind humanity, equity, and everything to solve the world's biggest problems, other than just focusing on small problems. So, like, thank you for joining for in this SWARMathon, the first of this series. And we're looking forward to see you in the future events. And I would like to ask you if you'd like to add something at the end. And I'm gonna go ahead and start.
I let's let our panel wrap it up for us. I've gotten my questions in, and I love that last answer. I feel it's so actionable and it's such a great takeaway. Thank you for that.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Mahnaz and Anne, for convening us. These are very timely discussion agenda items, and I also learned very important takeaways from Abhijeet, Mustafa, and I would love to remain in touch for future collaborations with everybody.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.